Hi, welcome to Big Valley Living. My name is Michelle, and I'm going to be bringing you some healthy alternatives to some sweet treats for Candy Christmas. Thank you to Lisa at Yogi Hollow Farm, as well as Tammy at Mountain Grandma for inviting me to come to this collaboration this month. There are going to be over 30 YouTube channels giving you some really great tips for some sweet treats for the holidays. I am trying to watch my weight. I'm trying to not eat too much sugar over the holidays, which is very hard. So I've got some recipes today that are going to satisfy my sweet tooth, but also give me some really fun snacks that I can take in my purse. If I want a quick bite, I can throw them in my backpack. You could take them hiking with you. I like to put them on charcuterie boards, and most of all, because it is December, I like to give them as Christmas gifts as well. So I'm going to give you a few ideas here today. A few of them have a sweet side, a few of them are going to have a bite. I'd like to start by showing you the equipment that you're going to need. It's going to make your life very easy. A cookie sheet. I like to use a rimmed pan just because you're going to be stirring the nuts about halfway through. Line it with parchment paper. That's really important because you're not going to want this to stick. Different types of nuts, and they need to be raw. This is important for this recipe, okay? Don't use dry roasted, salted, or anything like that. You can buy raw nuts in bulk at any like co-op in your area, probably Trader Joe's. I'm able to get them at a store here called Sprouts, and you can even get them at Costco. They do have raw nuts available in some forms. So what I have here today are some pepitas or pumpkin seeds that have been shelled, raw shelled pistachio nuts, pecans, cashews, and finally we have almonds. Now I buy these in bulk, and as you can see I have them in freezer bags, and I keep all of my nuts in the freezer. By doing that, we don't have any chance of the oils coming out and the nuts going rancid. I've been doing this for years, and it's really nice to be able to just go in and grab a handful of nuts if you want them for any recipe, topping a salad, things like that. I like to use two different measuring spoons. Make sure that they have at least a 1 tablespoon capacity, and I use these that I got at Pampered Chef a long time ago because they're adjustable. I use one for dry goods, like spices, and then I'll use another one for the wet ingredient. And the wet ingredient here, which you'll need to have, is pure maple syrup. Don't use the prepared stuff that you find at the grocery store. Use pure maple syrup. The other has sugars in it that will burn, and you're not going to have, you're not going to have a snack that you're going to want to be enjoying. You're also going to want to use a measuring cup. My suggestion is to use like a 4-cup measure, and make sure that you have a spout so that after you've measured all of your nuts together, you can just pour them into a mixing bowl. And then of course have a mixing bowl that holds about at least 6 cups so that you have room to stir your maple syrup and your spices together. Let's get started. I have my oven preheated at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Per 1 cup of nuts, either mixed or one type only, per 1 cup of nuts you're going to use 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup and 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of your spices to choice. If you keep that rule of thumb in your head, you're probably not going to be able to go wrong here, okay? 1 cup of nuts, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, and 1 tablespoon of spices. If you want it spicier, measure up. If you want it a little less spicy after making a test batch, measure down. One more thing you're going to need is a silicone spatula. You could use a metal spatula as well if you'd like. I like these because they have a little bit of flexibility. This is by a company called Simply. They're really good for projects like this in the kitchen. If you don't want to use anything with silicone, you can definitely just use it like a bamboo type of spatula, okay? Let's get started by measuring the first batch of nuts. So we're going to take just shy of 1 cup of almonds. Oops. Now if you have any that are broken open like this, you can choose to leave them in. I don't mind leaving them in if it's for me to have snacks and things like that. But if I'm going to give this as a gift, I'm probably going to take these out and have a chef's treat later on, okay? And then, let's see here. I also really like pistachios. Now, I have it on pretty good word that these are not easy to find in other parts of the country, but California grows a lot of pistachios, so I guess I'm lucky here. Because I'm going to be making this for myself and as gifts, I'm probably going to double the batch, and I'm going to go ahead and put in 4 cups of nuts. I am going to take a full cup of pepitas. Again, these are so good for you. They have such healthy oils in them and everything. And then I'm going to balance my recipe out by adding a cup of cashews. Remember, now I'm at about 3 cups. And this is another reason I like using freezer bags for my nuts, because they lay flat in the freezer. There we go, 4 cups of nuts. So I have almonds, pepitas, cashews, and pecans. Oh my gosh, just by themselves they're delicious. And look, it's kind of a rainbow of nuts here. So I'm going to get different nutrients from each one. Okay, now this is going to have a sweet and spicy to it, okay? So I'm going to start out with buffalo ginger. You can use regular ginger, but buffalo ginger has a spicier flavor, and it'll give you just a little bit more of a kick. I love ginger, so I'm going to use this. We get this buffalo ginger from a company called Burlap and Barrel, and I can buy it locally at a spice shop, but if you cannot, I will put a link in our Amazon affiliate store down below. And if you order them, it won't cost you any more, but it will help our channel. So I am going to do 2 teaspoons. Now remember, we have 4 cups of nuts, so we're going to end up using 4 tablespoons base of our spices. 2 teaspoons is a half a tablespoon. Now I've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I'll put a link to that as well. Okay, executive decision. I love cinnamon. And I'm using a Ceylon cinnamon here. So I put in a full tablespoon of cinnamon because I want it to be cinnamon heavy. A teaspoon of allspice, and then I'm going to do a teaspoon of dried vanilla bean powder. I get this locally. I will link to some in my Amazon store if you can't find it. Dump those nuts into a bowl. Get your wet measuring spoon. This is 1 tablespoon. So remember, we have 4 cups of nuts. So we're going to use 4 cups of maple syrup. If you go over a little bit, no harm, no foul. The nice thing about these recipes is that I am not using any oils or fats, okay? And by eliminating those ingredients, these should keep a lot longer as long as you keep them in an airtight container. And I would recommend not leaving them like in the sun or anything like that. I'm going to give them a quick stir to just make sure that the nuts have an adequate amount of liquid around them before we add the spices. You see how it's real sticky? That's what's going to help the flavors adhere. Oh my gosh, you guys. And it's so pretty. It's so festive. Our spices and our nuts have not been toasted yet, right? Everything's raw. Everything's going to infuse, and there's going to be even more flavor. And I'm telling you right now, this smells amazing. It's kind of like making a little bit of a bark here. Okay, so I'm going to spread these out. You don't want them all touching real close or overlapping, but because I doubled the recipe, this is going to take about 20 minutes in my oven. So I am actually going to, here, I'm going to scrape that off, set my timer for 10 minutes. And at the halfway point, I'm going to stir these around, and then I am going to rotate the pan and flip it 180 degrees. That way I know that they're evenly baked if there are hot and cold spots in my oven. Isn't that beautiful already? Goodness gracious. Into the oven it goes. Okay, I've cleaned everything out, wiped this clean, or cleaned it with soap and water. And this next batch is going to be a more sweet heat. So, and I'm only going to do a single batch here, okay? So I have my raw almonds. I had 1 cup of raw almonds. I had a half a cup of raw cashews. I have about a quarter of a cup of raw pistachios. They are very expensive. And then rounded it all out with pepitas. Now, I didn't put any walnuts or any pecans in this because I do have some friends who can't eat those particular nuts. So this will make it easy for me to identify that I can give this to those particular friends and share this with them. So let me go ahead. I'm going to actually dump those in the bowl. And now I'm going to get the spices ready for you. I want these to have a kick to them. This one's going to be really good. You're going to love it. Okay, so I'm only going to do 2 cups of nuts here, okay? I've already got them in the bowl. I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of chipotle chili powder, 1 teaspoon of organic curry powder, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, ground turmeric powder. I'm going to use a teaspoon of chili lime salt, a teaspoon of garlic powder. I prefer powder in here, not granulated, because the powder is going to stick better. Last but not least, we have a teaspoon of ground cumin, because that's going to give it even more of like that smoky depth that I'm going for here. So I will add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup to the nuts, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the last batch. Now you'll notice here that I have a little bit more space because we have half the amount of nuts. That other batch may take longer to bake and kind of dry out because the nuts were so close together. So this is probably going to be right at the 20 minutes with our half turn at the 10-minute point. Oh, this smells really smoky and good. These are going to have a really neat, deep flavor. This would be really great on a charcuterie board. Okay, now for this one, it's going to be like a pumpkin pie spice, okay? This is super, super easy. So if you're just trying it for the first time, maybe start with this one. I'm going to do a 2-cup batch. I have about 3/4 of a cup of, of pecans. I have a cup of raw almonds. Let's get these out of here now. I'll snack on those. And then for this one, I think I'm going to go ahead and put in just the balance will be cashews. I'm not going to do seeds in this one. Let's see, a little bit of cashew. Now let's finish it out with cashew. This will be a 3-nut wonder. Okay, there we go. And get these little crunchies out. Off to the side they go. Now we'll put these into our bowl. And then we're going to do our 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. You really don't need much more than that. You're going to be tempted to put more in, but don't do it. There's absolutely no need. And the better the grade of maple syrup, well, you know how that equates, right? Okay, so I'm going to get these mixed up real quick. And then I'm going to do 2 tablespoons, tablespoon and a half of just a traditional pumpkin pie spice. And pumpkin pie spice is nothing more than cinnamon, ground ginger, ground nutmeg, and I think a little bit of cloves. At least that's how I make my own. Yeah, that's how I make mine. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to do a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, and then I'll do another teaspoon of that. And I like things that are kind of cinnamon heavy. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and throw just the littlest bit of cinnamon. I have a tiny bit left in this right here, so I'm going to measure this with my heart. It's about a teaspoon, maybe a half a teaspoon, because there's already cinnamon in that mix. You don't want it to be too crazy, but I do want the cinnamon to stand out. Mix it up real well. No vanilla in this one. You could put it in there if you wanted to, but I just want this to have more of a traditional pumpkin pie flavor, and I do not put vanilla in my pumpkin pie typically. So if you do, throw a little bit in there, by all means. This is your kitchen, and every one of these recipes is going to be unique. Okay, so I have that third batch on my parchment paper, and it's all ready to go into the oven as well. Chipotle chili powder. I just did a 1/4 teaspoon this time. 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. That was a generous 1/4 teaspoon. About 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. 1/8 of a teaspoon of cumin. I want to throw a little bit of curry in this one as well, so I'm just going to do about 1/8 of a teaspoon. This isn't going to have so much spice in it, because some people are pretty sensitive to spices. 1/8 of a teaspoon here of chili lime salt, and put that in there. I ended up chopping up some fresh rosemary from the herb garden outside, and I'm just going to do a tablespoon. If you only have dried, that's fine. Go ahead and use 1/4 to a half a teaspoon of dried. I'd go towards the half, and then just break it up a little bit. Maybe you know, just rub it between your fingers or what have you to just make it sure that it kind of gets well incorporated. Again, this nut mixture is cashews, almonds, and pecans. Okay, so none of the tiny nuts really at this point. And it's 2 cups. Okay, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. I'm going to give it a really quick zhuzh in here. Are you all having a great holiday season? I want to make sure to remind you, please make sure to watch all of the channels. And the more thoughtful and original comments, no emojis, none of that goofiness, the more original and thoughtful comments that you put, you'll have a better chance of winning prizes in that live drawing on January 3rd. You can find those playlists at Yogi Hollow, as well as over at Mountain Grandma's channel. And I will put a link to their channels as well as these spice blends in the description of my video. Once again, I'd like to thank Lisa at Yogi Hollow Farm, as well as Tammy over at Mountain Grandma, for inviting me to this year's Candy Christmas. I've really enjoyed myself. It's been a lot of fun to come up with some healthy snacks that still give us a little bit of a sweet treat, and maybe provide a little bit of extra nutrients to our diets. It never hurts to help our bodies, right? Thank you again. Don't forget, leave a nice comment in all of the channel's videos. Make sure you watch them all for the great ideas that we've given. And then on January 3rd, on Yogi Hollow Farm, there's going to be a live giveaway. And the more comments that you leave, the more chances you have to win. You know the deal. Thanks again for visiting Big Valley Living. Happy holidays, everybody. See you later. Be kind.